Hola amigos, this is Level 12 and today we are going to be discussing the psychology of a yandere. Now if you don't know what a yandere is, it's a mixture of the Japanese word yan and the word deri. Yan means sick and deri, means loving, so it's a sick type of loving, and we're going to be looking at the psychology of what makes a yandere a yandere. Now the four yanderes I would like to look at today are forgive me if I butcher some of the names. Reiji Kokonoe from Kodomo no Jikan, Yuno Gasai from Future Diary, Shion Sonozaki from Higurashi, and Kotonoha Katsura from School Days. Now this is your spoiler warning here because I'm not holding back with my analysis, and if you don't want to be spoiled about any of the anime currently on this page, please go away. This is your only warning. And what we are going to be looking for are patterns in these four cases to see what truly makes a yandere. So as I said before, our first case study is Reiji Kokonoe from Kodomo no Jikan. So first is our introduction of Reiji, and we don't really see much of him in the beginning, not until a little bit later when like home visits need to be done by his name is weird, by the teacher for Rin, his student. And Reiji is the all we know of Reiji at this point is that he's the guardian of Rin, and there's no one else. But then later, and I couldn't find any pictures of it, we get to learn his backstory and why he is with Rin, because he's not her father, nor anything else like that. She's kind of like, it's a cousin removed situation. I don't know. The relationship's weird. But we learned that he has, that as a child, his father was an abusive and an alcoholic, and his mom was an enabler of that because she felt if she left, her future financially wouldn't be very stable, which is a common victim mentality kind of thing. So this leaves him with a void, lack of love type of void, and when his parents die, he doesn't really shed any tears. So then he goes to live with his cousin, who is also a black sheep of the family because she had a child out of wedlock, and the husband's not around of that child. So at first he's kind of cool and cold towards her until he realizes how good of a mother she is to Rin, and he falls in love with her because Rin's mom is filling that void he has left by his mom when he didn't feel any love. So the void is filled that void is filled from the mom with the love towards him, but then she dies, and this is where you could argue that the mental break was already when his parents were kind of abusing him, but now you could really definitely say when Rin's mother died, that's where the mental break happened, because he couldn't really handle it. He started manifesting his desires to Rin, and there was one episode where he even took her out of school because he didn't want her near the teacher. And as you can see in this comic panel over here, he's like telling her to be afraid of her teacher because Rin has a crush on the teacher, and Reiji doesn't like that at all. It's just a big no-go. So currently we see a void, a filling of the void, and some form of mental break and backlash towards anyone trying to touch the person they love. Case number 2 is Yuno Gasai, and our introduction of her is kind of mixed. We kind of see her as a sweet and loving girl, and then we also see her as a crazy psychopath. But as we learn later, there's reasons for it. Yuno was adopted into a pretty decent family until there started to be financial troubles, and then the dad started working really long hours, and the mom, due to stress, I think it gave her psychosis, some kind of mental disease or defect, something there. It messed with her head, and it really stressed her out, and she took it out on Yuno, and she would lock Yuno in a cage because she wanted Yuno to be the perfect citizen, and when Yuno wasn't being perfect, her mom just kind of locked her in a cage, and she would go days on end without eating. She'd have to eat things that typically weren't edible, like straw, and eventually Yuno just got fed up with it. That void and lack of love just completely broke. And she locked them in a cage and forgot about them. And when she realized what she'd done, she just shattered. She felt nothing in her life had meaning, and she even started slacking off in school, and she was just completely broken and empty at this point, until one day when she's forced to stay after school, she meets Yuki, and they're in detention, and they have to write what they plan for their future, and Yuno just can't think of anything because she doesn't see a future at all. And so she goes and asks Yuki, what do you want? And Yuki is like, I want to go stargazing with my family, even though my parents have divorced. And then Yuno is like, well, isn't that dream impossible? And he's like, nothing is impossible. And Yuno's like, well, maybe we can go together, and I can be your bride. And, she's really down in the dumps right now. Usually when people are this far down, they can't really distinguish reality from what's just in their head. And Yuki, not knowing this, jokingly agrees and kind of forgets about it. But Yuno, with this promise of marrying and going stargazing, she latches onto this, full on latches onto it insanely. And she's just like, yes, this is what I want. And then she starts to become obsessive because the void has been filled, but it's kind of been overfilled. She starts obsessing over this idea and starts watching him, wanting to know what he's like, what's his life like. This is why her diary is the Yuki diary, because her love for him manifested so much that it kind of became a little creepy. And it got to the point where if she thought she would lose Yuki, she would lose herself. She was so afraid of losing Yuki, and it's probably because if she lost him, she would once again lose her will to live. Case number 3 is Shion Sonozaki from Higurashi. Now the introduction of Shion is a little confusing because we find out she's the twin of Mion, and just her introduction is really weird, and we kind of just get the idea that she's very much like her twin. She's just very, jokester, kind of playful. But then we learn more about Shion Sonozaki in that because she is the twin, she's kind of the outcast of the family, because only one person is supposed to head the Sonozaki family in the clan, and twins make that kind of impossible. So Shion and Mion switched places as children, so Mion was pretended to be the older twin while Shion pretended to be the younger twin, and it didn't create a rift between Shion and Mion, but it created a rift between Shion and the rest of the family. She was kind of treated as the black sheep, and she was even sent to boarding school because Shion just was not supposed to exist. But instead, and Shion just didn't care at all, and she found solace in Satoshi, because Satoshi was just so kind to her. He didn't care, and Shion actually felt like she had a purpose in life with Satoshi. So that void left from not really having someone to care for her that deeply was filled by Satoshi, and it was a forbidden love. And because it was a forbidden love, Shion had to pay for that. And the reason it was forbidden is because Satoshi, his parents kind of supported this construction that the town did not support, and Satoshi was a part of that and just had to deal with all that backlash, and Shion shouldered it with him, and it was so cute and adorable, but Shion had to pay by ripping out her nails. And she did it because she thought with this everything be fine, but it wasn't. And when she realized it wasn't going to be okay, and when Satoshi disappeared, that's when her mental break happened. And in Higurashi, there's something that none of the others have, which is Hinamizawa syndrome. When Hinamizawa syndrome, it makes your bad feelings intensify. It just spikes it through the roof. It's insane. And so when she realized Satoshi wasn't coming back, she started manifesting her hate towards his little sister Satoko, which one can arguably say is justified, but the way she did it was insane. Because she loved Satoshi so much and that she blamed Satoko for his disappearance, she started to attack and beat the girl and say, "You're the reason he's gone. You're the reason he's gone. It's all your fault." And she went so far as to kill Satoko, despite the promise she made with Satoshi to protect her, because in certain arcs, she believed so much that if Satoko went away, Satoshi would come back. So there was this big thing with her love for Satoshi, that she would have to kill someone to get him back. Even someone he cared about so much, she just wanted Satoshi back without having to worry, because he worried so much over Satoko that it drove him to the brink, and Shion had to see him being driven to the brink by his own little sister. It's a sad, sad endeavor. Our final case is Kotonoha Katsura from School Days. So the first we get to see of Kotonoha is actually a pretty decent girl. Like, she's probably the most sane out of the three we meet upon first introductions, which I kind of like. So later on we get to know Kotonoha as a very friendly, she's well-mannered, she's rich, for one, and we just get to see this really nice side of Kotonoha. However, we also get to know that because she's rich and beautiful, no one wants to be her friend. The boys are afraid of her because she is rich and beautiful, and they don't want to mess with that. And the girls dislike her because all the boys like her. And she's kind of isolated and lonely at school and doesn't really get to hang out with a lot of people, and so this kind of creates a void of just needing friends, and she's lonely. And so what ends up happening is Makoto kind of capitalizes on the situation and becomes her boyfriend when she falls head over heels in love with this guy, because it's the first person in probably a long while that's taken notice of her and wants to be her friend. However, Makoto, as we know, is a jerk and begins cheating on her. And she, in her messed up little mind, is kind of okay with it. Until he decides to break things off, which, because she'd given up so much for this guy, like, she'd given up a lot for this guy and did so much just to make him happy, that she could not stand the idea that he could not be with her. She was just lost in her love for him, that it breaks her, and she just goes off the wall when she realizes that he's never gonna be there for her because Makoto has to fulfill his duties to this other girl, and she just can't handle that. She could live with him fooling around with other girls if he came back, and he couldn't this time, so she just went berserk and killed the other girl, despite the fact that Makoto was already dead. So, what does this tell us, boys and girls? Well, we'll find out in a few seconds. Alright, so now we have a list of the patterns of behavior. The ones highlighted in yellow are ones that not everyone showed, but at least 2 of them showed. So the first one is a bad childhood, and this can mean abusive parents, neglect, whatever else you would consider a childhood from the norm. The only one that doesn't show this is Kotonoha, because she actually had a pretty decent family. But Reiji, his parents, well, his dad at least was abusive. His mom kind of just let the abuse happen. Yuno, her parents were fine until the money problems, and her mom locked her in a cage, and her dad didn't do anything to stop it. And Shion, she just was ignored. She was the black sheep of the family. Sorry, I had cereal right before I filmed this. Next is being isolated, and I feel like they've all were isolated. Reiji didn't really have anyone in the family to talk to about the abuse from his father. Yuno, it's I don't think she had anyone to talk to about what her mom was doing. How can you tell anyone that your mom is locking you in a cage? And it was just, she was isolated in her own home. She was locked in a cage for days on end. Like, come on. And then Shion, being the black sheep, she was pretty isolated from, well, her isolation didn't start until she was left at a boarding school that she hated. And, at that boarding school, she was kind of away from everyone. She didn't really know what was happening in Hinamizawa, and she didn't really get to talk to anyone, and she just manifested this loneliness. Like, when you're at a boarding school because your family doesn't want you, you're gonna be isolated. Then finally is Kotonoha, who was, at home she was pretty open, but at school no one would talk to her. Like, she would eat on the roof because no one wanted to be her friend, and if that's not isolation, I don't know. She self-isolated herself in any case. Next is a void. There has to be some kind of void that needs to be filled. In Reiji, it was a voidness of his mother's love. For Yuno, it was a void of not feeling there was a future. For Shion, there was just a void for any kind of loving human contact at all. And for Kotonoha, there was a void for friendship. She just wanted to have some form of a social life, and it didn't really work out too well. Dependency on the one they loved. I didn't feel Reiji had a dependence on who he loved because the first one died and the second one was a child. So there wasn't that much of a dependency. And I also don't feel like Shion had that much of a dependency because she didn't need Satoshi like Satoko needed Satoshi. The only one where there was a huge dependency was Yuno, who just could not live without Yuki. Without Yuki, Yuno would have probably just wallowed away in some weird mystical land. And then Kotonoha, she needed some form of a social life because there were once she started hanging out with Makoto, first of all, the girls hated her. Like, right after she started dating Makoto, the hate grew, and there was this other guy that was trying to be her friend, and she just would not have it at all. Next is a mental break, and this, where the mental breaks happened, it can happen more than once, and it happened at different times for the characters. So this mental break for Reiji, it was when Ren's mom died. Like, that is when, because, like, he was beaten and bruised as a child, and it kind of hardened him, but when Ren's mom died, he just, no, he lost it. And he didn't lose it as bad as some of the other characters, but it's very clear that he was not okay after that. Yuno's mental break was after she realized she'd starved her parents to death, which would break anyone, I would assume. And Shion's mental break was when she realized Satoshi wasn't coming back. Like, ripping her nails out probably helped with that, but when she realized Satoshi was gone, she just lost it. She could not live without Satoshi. For Kotonoha, her mental break was when she realized Makoto wasn't coming back also, because he had to fulfill his duties to the other girl, and she was just like, no, you can't have him, he's mine. Screw you. Harm others to protect the one they love. Reiji would harm the teacher. Basically killed anyone. Like, she was even willing to go as far as to kill Yuki's mom if she got in the way. Shion, the only people I saw her take her anger out was Satoshi and Satoko's uncle and Sadako herself. Just because to protect the one she loved, obviously. And then the final episode of School Days, we get to see Kotonoha just with that meat cleaver, man. And I wish I've seen the censored and uncensored version of that scene, and I kind of like the censored version better. Just a personal thing. The one they love can do no wrong. This is, with Reiji, he does scold Ren sometimes for how she dresses and stuff like that. And then Yuno, I don't really think she saw that much fault in Yuki, other than Yuki didn't really do much to mess with Yuno. He was first off afraid of her, like Stockholm Syndrome afraid of her, and So I guess Yuno could arguably say she believed her loved one could do no wrong, but Yuki really didn't try to do much wrong against her, which is good, real good for him. Shion, she again, Satoshi, I guess, also couldn't do no wrong, even though he didn't really present. He was the best big brother he could be. Like, Satoshi is the most underrated character in Higurashi ever. I wish he had more screen time. I wish he had more screen time. And then Makoto definitely could do no wrong. Kotonoha was like, as long as you come back to me, I love you. And that's kind of creepy, but whatever, you know. Whatever. And then finally they need someone to fill the void created by whatever messed them up. If they don't have someone to fill the void, such as a senpai, then nothing's gonna work. They need someone to obsess over. They need something to obsess over. They need something to love, to bring them out of the depths of whatever their dark mind is into. They also really need that mental break, because without the mental break, then they don't have a void, and without a void, they don't need someone to fill the void, and thus they don't obsess. These are the patterns of behavior for Yandere. Follow these steps, and you'll pretty much have your Yandere. Alright, I had another slide, but it was just a basic rehashing of that other slide, so we're not going to go for it, because I don't want to make 4 parts of this video. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that in-depth analysis of Yandere's. I actually had a lot of fun making it, even though I spent one entire day on research of stalkers and ended up not using it, because this video would be so much longer if I did. Whatever. Anyways, yeah, I had a lot of fun making this video. It was great. Anyways, and I hope you learned something. Also, geez, I almost forgot this. If you know of any other male yanderes, tell me, because I only found one, which was Reiji, which is great. He didn't kill anyone, but he kind of kidnapped Rin and took her to an amusement park. Anyways, that's it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more anime and otaku related content. Ciao, chicos!